You know what this is, right? That late 90s kart racer that barely anyone seems to give any credit? Yeah. It's Lego Mego Racers! Believe it or not, but this is still one of my favorite racing games of all time, and I still play it quite a bit to this day. So I got thinking, why not review some more Lego games here on Forgotten Games? Because, well, there's a ton of them out there that not many people have heard of, let alone played, and I see comments all the time telling me to review some more Lego games. In fact, I saw a bunch of them just last week.
You should review Drone Racer. You are missing Lego Stunt Run. Can you please do Forgotten Games on Lego Island Extreme Stunts? Why don't you listen to these people?
Okay! Your wishes have been granted.
For decades, Lego has been one of the most popular toy brands in the world, so it's no surprise that they would cross into the realm of video games. But nowadays we've got almost too many Lego games. Lego Batman, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, the Lego Movie game, and a crap ton of others that are largely based on licensed properties. Most, if not all of these games are pretty good. In fact, the first two Lego Star Wars games are among my favorite games from the 6th console generation. But if you were to look back on late 90s and early 2000s PC gaming, you would find these beauties. I think you know what I'm talking about. Lego Rock Raiders, the Racers series, the Island series, Lego Alpha Team, Lego El Polo Loco, just to name a few. Lots of fond memories were created with these games, and I'm sure the same thing goes for a lot of you out there as well. For me, it was mostly Lego Racers 1 and 2, but you already know that I did a crappy job of covering those two games, so how about we check out some others. To kick things off, we have Lego Island, the first Lego video game. Developed and published by Mindscape in 1997, the game saw a huge success with millions of copies sold. And that's not really surprising to me. I mean, what kid doesn't love building with Legos and having the freedom to explore a whole island? It was a genius concept. The game had great variety, many playable characters, and yes, it was even funny. It also had two different endings, one of which, by the way, the Brickster became a tyrant.
It's mine! All mine!
The game totally outdid itself by including a manual that was basically a comic book, and by having this video play whenever you tried to launch the game without the CD inserted.
Whoops, you have to put the CD in your computer.
Looking back on it now, the game does show its age, but really that's the beauty of it. It's such a warm and colorful game that the dated graphics don't really matter anymore. It's still a great game to this day, and even if your childhood wasn't a part of it, I highly suggest you check it out if you're a fan of Legos. 4 years and many other Lego games later, Lego Island 2: The Brickster's Revenge was released. Unlike the first game, this sequel was developed by Silicon Dreams, and with that change came many other changes. The game evolved from a first-person to a third-person perspective, much more dialogue was added in, and there were more mini-games. Now this on paper sounds like a step in the right direction, but it wasn't, and I'll tell you why. Everything just wasn't up to par with what the first game did so well. The characters were given horrible voices, there wasn't any building involved, the controls were lackluster, and it was filled with a ton of poorly executed minigames. To be fair, the game wasn't terrible, it just wasn't that great of a sequel. You could argue that it is better than the original, and that's fine, but to me, Lego Island 2 was just simply missing the magic that the first game pulled off so well. Hell, the game didn't even stay true to its title since there were 2 other islands you go on, and you go on the moon. So really the game should have been called Lego Islands 2: The Brickster's Revenge plus the moon. Yeah, that sounds better. And then came Island Extreme Stunts in 2002. No, not Lego Island Extreme Stunts, just Island Extreme Stunts, for whatever reason.
I've had this game since I was about 10 years old, but I never actually got it to work on the computer that I had at the time, probably because it ran Windows Vista. Anyway, this is the third and final game in the Island Trilogy, and it was made by the same developer behind Lego Island 2, Silicon Dreams. So, did they learn from their mistakes? We can only hope.
It begins with a camera crew and a reporter talking about how there's a new movie in the works called Extreme Stunts. And our protagonist, Pepper here, apparently becomes the star of the film by doing this extreme stunt. So without any warning, we're thrown into the first minigame, which is a car chase called Freeway Frenzy. At first, the camera crew was keeping up with my car, but then I found the floor key, which makes me go 0 to 60 in 2.5. In this minigame, you basically just ram the Brickster's car with yours, and surprisingly, it's not half bad. There's various jumps and power-ups scattered around, and it plays pretty smooth. But I just have to ask one question. What makes Pepper a stuntman? The goal of this minigame is to ram the Brickster's car, but it's not like Pepper's doing any fancy pit maneuvers or anything like that. No, he's just hitting him. So according to Extreme Stunts logic, if I crash into somebody on the road, that makes me a stuntman. Sure, I might go to the hospital, but I'll still be a stuntman. After the first minigame, everyone appears to be very pleased with the one crash they managed to film, so much so that Pepper starts dancing like he's on Saturday Night Fever. Oh, but not the Brickster. He seems to be mad about something. I'm not really sure what it is, but maybe they blew the budget right away, who the hell knows. Now comes our first look at the exploration part of this game, where you're free to run and skate about the island as you please. But let's talk about Pepper for a bit, because he's quite interesting. Surprisingly, he doesn't really say much throughout this game. It seems the only time he does talk is when he jumps or hits something on his skateboard. But hey, it's 100 times better than hearing shit like this from Lego Island 2. Pepperoni! He also appears to have some major jogging problems, as he stutters and runs like he's in a marathon almost constantly. Other questionable things include not computing with walls and giving gravity the middle finger. Oh yeah, and he can jump on water, so I don't know why he's wasting his time on Lego Island. I mean, he'd probably have at least 20 Olympic medals by now. Just like in the previous games, you can chat it up with people. So how about we see what this guy has to say?
I should be doing the driving stunts for Extreme Stunts. I am the best driver on the island. They probably couldn't afford me.
Yeah, they probably couldn't afford you because this bastard had to blow the budget! The island serves as a hub world for the minigames, but it also lets you earn different licenses for different vehicles and do other minigames like this one where you can jump off a cliff. Another nice improvement over Lego Island 2 is that Pepper controls a million times better, with the exception of the stuttering. He can actually jump higher than 2 feet now and do legitimate tricks on his skateboard. However, one somewhat disturbing factor I found to this is whenever he falls, he will lay on the ground until you press a key. Yes, he will not move his lifeless ragdoll-like body with the same stupid smirk on his face until you tell him to. That's it. That's the best thing about Ion Extreme Stunts right there. I want a creepypasta written immediately. Oh well, at least Pepper can do kickflips. All day long. Never stops, just keeps going until you let go of the control key. Am I having fun yet? Anyway, after dicking around for a bit, I played the other minigames, and I have to admit, they weren't half bad. There's Motorbike Mayhem, Wave Catcher, Air Chase, and Ripcord Rescue, all of which feature verbal instructions from Mr. Spielberg wannabe.
Watch out for the bad guy! You mustn't let him win!
That quote is amazing. Imagine if something like that was in Star Wars.
Watch out for the bad guy! You mustn't let him win!
For the most part, the minigames control just fine, but I was able to make Pepper do some pretty funny stuff, like making him constantly crash and making his limbs flail all around. The main focus of Extreme Stunts are the minigames, and you do have to beat them a couple times to unlock the next one. However, they were all fun to play, so it wasn't really a big deal. The only minigame I didn't really care for was Air Chase, because grabbing the necessary items was a lot more difficult than it should have been. One thing I found kinda strange is that Pepper doesn't take down the Brickster's plane with rockets or missiles. No, instead, he rams his propeller's plane into the Brickster's plane like a goddamn kamikaze pilot. Thanks to Pepper, I decided to extend my stuntman career by becoming a pilot. Excuse me for a second. Hey, move it, dipshit. Anyway, with the 5 minigames completed and the filming all done, the director reveals that he's organized a party for all our hard work. That cheering. It's so over the top. By the way, Pepper, you should probably get a new hat. That one clips. So at this party, we suddenly see the Brickster, who reveals that he and his Brickster bots built a tower to take control of all the bricks in the whole world. How did nobody notice this tower? I don't know, but why was the Brickster let out of jail in the first place? Maybe the cop will give us an explanation.
I knew it. You shouldn't have been let out.
Okay, I agree, but what are you gonna do about it now?
Pepper, you need to save the Infomaniac and stop that supercomputer!
Yeah, so instead of the cop stopping the Brickster, everything's just thrown at Pepper because, you know, it was totally his fault. You get in a car and drive around the island, avoiding random crap that comes from nowhere. Then once you're at the tower, a platforming section lies ahead. This actually proved to be a bit frustrating because the jumping controls are really touchy and the pace that Pepper moves at does not work with small platforms. It just doesn't. And to make matters worse, some of the platforms you have to jump on are invisible. I guess we can add that to Pepper's list of abilities. And then there's a section where the game turns into an endless runner type deal with you jumping over barrels. This looks familiar. Well, to tell you the truth, this section was actually pretty fun. The jumping controls weren't much of a problem, and it was just satisfying to play. Whatever this is happened at one point, but that's okay, we're at the top now where it's time for an epic final boss fight against the Brickster. You basically just wait for him to ground pound, and then you throw a bunch of pizzas at him until he falls off the cliff. This looks familiar. The boss fight isn't really difficult, but it wasn't bad either, if not for the fact that you can do this. Once the Brickster is defeated, we get to watch the completed movie as a nice reward, even if it doesn't appear to make much sense. There's no dialogue, and it never explained who this guy is or what this thing is, but oh well, the movie was extreme, so I guess that's all that matters. When you put things into perspective, Island Extreme Stunts did a lot of things right as a sequel. The skateboarding was much more redefined, it didn't have any boring minigames, and Pepper actually shut the hell up for once in his life. It did have weird glitches, and it didn't always make sense, but nothing that killed the gameplay. Ultimately, if I had to choose one, I'd say the original is the best in this series, but Extreme Stunts was fun to play through, and I really wouldn't mind playing through it again.
So those are the LEGO Island games, the ones on PC at least. While they're not perfect, I would recommend them, except for maybe this one, but even it wasn't half bad. Actually, we're not quite done yet talking about LEGO games, so check into the next few episodes of Forgotten Games, and we'll take a look at a bunch more.
In the meantime, you can click here to watch the last episode of Forgotten Games, or the next part of this LEGO Games extravaganza for some more LEGO goodness. Or if you feel like doing it, subscribing is always appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.